Reverse string. Write a function that reverses a string. The input string is given as an array of characters. Char. Do not allocate extra space for another array. You must do this by modifying the input array in place with O1 extra memory. You may assume all the characters consist of printable ASCII characters. So we have hello, which is OLLEH backwards, and then we have Hannah, which is Hannah backwards with the lowercase h and lowercase h in the beginning, uppercase h in the end. So a couple of ways that we could solve this. The first thing that should come to your head is just doing the built-in method, which would be something like returning s.reverse. So if we run it and then submit, we'll pass the test, but that kind of defeats the purpose of an interview. So let's think about some other approaches as kind of a brute force. We could say, looking at the question where it says, do not allocate extra space for another array. You must do this by modifying the input array in place with constant memory. Well, let's just use extra space and then not care what Leetcode says. So if we did something like that, we would create a result, which would be this, and then we would iterate. So for let I equals s.length minus 1, I is less greater than 0, I minus minus, and then now we can push in each element into our results array and then ultimately return the result. So if we run this, we'll get the wrong answer, but in doing a sort of brute force approach, we can kind of take a step back and say, okay, well, what have we done? We kind of have something that starts at the end of the array, and we want to keep going. We have something that starts at the beginning of the array. So let's see if we can kind of build off of or iterate off of our brute force approach. And that would be kind of what Leetcode is looking for as far as the constant space solution. So if you came up with this, I'm going to feel for you. But what they were looking for is that we would just modify this input array, and then we're not returning anything. We're just gonna, modify it, and then Leetcode will check the solution. So what should pop out is the fact that we're using constant space. A good approach would be to use 2 pointers. So we could have a left pointer. We'll just use, let's do L, which is going to go left to right, and then we'll have a right pointer, which we use R, and then right is actually going to go right to left. And so we're going to say at each index, we're going to swap the values. And then when they touch, we'll basically be done. So if we have L, which will start, let's do here. Let's create some more space. So we have a left pointer, which starts at the beginning of the array, and then we have a right pointer, which starts at the very end of the array. So what we're going to do initially is swap these 2 values. O will become H, and then H will become O. Now we can move these pointers over until we get here. Then now we could swap the O and the L, right? And then move the pointers over again. And then both of the pointers are going to be touching each other, so we wouldn't, oh, this was an E. I done goofed. But yeah, now that they're touching, we would basically be done. And we're not returning anything. We're just modifying the input array. So this would basically be our end approach. I'm assuming the built-in method is going to do something similar to what we're doing here. So we can say that the time complexity is going to be O of n, because we have to iterate through, we have to hit every single character, and then the space will be constant because we only have 2 variables. We should only be using 2 variables compared to using extra space where the time and space complexity would be O of n. So if we iterate, implement this approach, we should have something where we have a left pointer, which is going to be 0, and then we have a right pointer, which is at the length of the array, the end of the length of the array, kind of like what we were doing with the for loop, but with extra space. And then we'll have say while left is less than our right pointer. We can swap the values using destructuring in JavaScript. And then say that s of right is our s of left. And then we'll increment our left pointer, and then we'll be able to decrement our right pointer. And so this should be it. And then if we submit, we're passing. So like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.